So, like I said, thank you once again, and I hope you enjoy this lecture. And it's just very fascinating to be able, and an honor also to be able to study this type of teachings and be able to express them. I have uh, certainly, it's almost like a alchemic process when you do things and you get into the nature of it, get profound into it. It's quite magical, and I hope you enjoy it. And as I have enjoyed and learned as much as I have learned too. So I'm going to start by sharing my some of the presentation. I also is going to include some clips. So let me begin with the first one. Here we are. So there is a lot of different people that have to put together the history of Pythagoras, and I am going with, in our teachings, HPB mentioned in several of her books about Pythagoras, but they also, he have some, and besides Plato, and Iamblichus is one of the one that collected the most information about him. And it's just absolutely lovely. And I would like to say that I think, I don't know if this civilization, we realize I'm going to, I need to, never mind. I was going to do something, but I don't think I can do it. I don't want to interrupt anything. I need my glasses. This remarkable Pythagoras was justly celebrated as a great astronomer, philosopher, physician, and scientist. He's worldwide famous for his geometry and the theorem, the tetractys, music of the sphere, and for his wonderful golden verses. He also revolutionized the world by his concept of the first university or institute or brotherly fraternities for men and for also women to develop their minds, virtues, and skills. Using his initiation's knowledge and training from the mystery schools, he developed an esoteric and exoteric school at Crotona in Italy, which was required to vow of secrecy and the oath as well, the Tetrachis oath, which we're going to be discussing later on. However, his mission was much broader. It was to bring healing to humanity. He came to reform science, medicine, and the superstition and rituals of the ages. In fact, this great sage said once, I did not come to teach, but to heal. And then there is a reference by Flavius Philostratus about the life of Apollonius of Tyana, in which he said, Pythagoras said that the most divine art was that of healing. And if the healing art is most divine, it must occupy itself with the soul as well as with the body. This profound statement is not surprising because Apollonius once confessed that he was in fact the reincarnation of Pythagoras. It is not unusual for great Mahatmas or great souls to come back and to continue their work and to help humanity, obviously. he was, this is also a perfect example, as you know, among the belief of Buddhists and the lamas of Tibet and their successors and so on. So it's not unusual for them to come back, especially if they are in that type of level. It has been documented that Apollonius of Tyana, a magnificent neo-Pythagorean adept, he was an alchemist and a healer as well, among many other powers, did by far more and greater miracles than Jesus the Christ. And there is a discrepancy in which some historians, including H.P. Blavatsky, believe that Jesus Christ was a myth because they were contemporary and they attribute a lot of his great powers and miracles to Jesus, which we don't have anything that can prove that in fact existed, that really belong all these attributes to Apollonius de Tyana, because he had a lot, it is documented, all the stuff he did, and he was have a lot of connection among the wealthy and the kings and the noble. So it's a lot of way to trace all his duties. But I just want to point that out because we're talking about Apollonius or Pythagoras, both, right? Our discussion will take us into a journey of his long years of traveling to exotic lands, looking for perfection and truth, including Pythagoras' initiation, some of his discovery, and the coveted Croton School and its rules and degrees, among others. The presentation will have brief video clips that corroborate some of his early discoveries among scientists and experts. So let's begin with the first visual, which is about his origin.
Everything okay, Miluka?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's all right. Here we are.
Pythagoras' early years. "25 centuries ago, the island of Samos was one of the garden spots of Ionia, colonized hundreds of years before by a group of Arcadians. Under the leadership of the great Sol Anachaeus, it had now become the island where the tyrant Polycrates rules. At the Apollo oracle of Delphi, the priestess Pythia told Pythagoras, "You will bear a son who will surpass all men in wisdom and virtue." When Nesarchus and Pythagoras reached Sidon in Phoenicia on their way back to Samos, their son Pythagoras was born. According to Iamblichus, even in childhood, Pythagoras astonished all who knew him by his profound wisdom and radiance. By age 18, he had already exhausted the cultural possibilities of his home. Having heard of Thales and Anaximander, he set sail for the mainland journey, Tyre and Byblos. He spent time in solitude in a temple at Mount Carmel before Egypt.
where we're going to continue with our slide presentation. As I mentioned before, we have the topics, what we are discussing right now. And let's talk about Pythagoras and his initiation. That's the title. But before we go into those details, I would like to mention that there is a discrepancy about when he died and when he was born. But this is the dates that we thought that maybe was the most reliable. The way how he died too, it was also, there is a discrepancy as well because there are two versions. He's, as you saw in the clip, his father was Nesarchus. He was a merchant that he specialized in selling gems. And apparently he took Pythagoras to many of his trips. Because he knew that he was a special being, he sort of helped him to start prepping him for his future job. And it is believed that his father trained him with Zodiac. He was part of the Zoroaster group, and he probably got initiated early into those type of belief or teachings. And his mother changed the name, and then later on she called herself Pythais. And I already mentioned that Pythagoras was a great philosopher, and besides all his wonderful contribution, he was the founder of the Pythagorean Brotherhood, that although religious in nature, formulated the principles and influenced the thought of Plato and Aristotle, and contribute to the development of mathematics and the Western rational philosophy, best known for his followers, historian Plato and Iamblichus, which I already mentioned. So this is Raphael did a lot of paintings of Pythagoras. This is when he was much older. And then let's talk about that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Before we go into the return to Samos, we have to see the initiation clip that I'm going to show right now. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going back to our presentation of the slides. Now let's go to Samos. When he returned from the mystery school, he went to Samos, which was his first place. And unfortunately, he was not able to do what he wanted to do because he found out that the conditions in this place was not as they used to be. And so he could not find students. So he saw this young man in a gym and he asked him, he said, I will pay you if you come and study with me. So he did. And the student got so enchanted by his charisma and the teachings that he said, you don't have to pay me anymore. So that became his one and only student. And then he realized that it was not much future for his teachings at Samos. So he went to Crotona in Italy. And that's when he began the school. Now, Crotona is being spelled with K and also C, but in Greek it's supposed to be K. And the belief of the Crotona school were that at its deeper level, reality is mathematical in nature. Philosophy can be used for spiritual purification, and the soul can rise to union with the divine, and center symbols have a mystical significance. And all brothers of the order should observe a strict loyalty and secrecy, which was one of the most important part of this school. And there was a very important reason why the secrecy was important. And well, he continued developing this wonderful school. And he developed a system based on his teachings from the, I would say, the masters or adepts from wherever he went, because he went to many different schools, not only Egypt, but he also educated himself in India and also with the Chaldeans and Babylonia and Babylon and many other schools, the Lycians, and he was able to gather all this wonderful collection of information. I want to make a point that each school is specialized in a particular element, although they all want to bring the harmony and the union, but they all wanted to, you have to perfect it in order to join the school. And the school codes was concentrated on ethical and moral and social relationship, emphasizing personal character building, asceticism, moderation in all things, and communal service. For example, the secrecy of the Egyptian priests, they refused to eat specific beings, although there is also a I don't think they interpreted quite well this quote, because I think he meant specific beans, especially, it's possible there was soybeans, because soybean is not easily to be digested. And so they have to wear clothes made not from animals, and they have to wear be simple. As you see, there is a similarity is the way the clothing of the Greeks at this time and the Buddhist monk. You know, they're different colors, but they all wear the wrapping around, you know, it's all cotton. And it's very similar. And even some of their costumes are similar. He encouraged, you know, purity, and even the sandals could not be made of leather. And as you've seen here, it made it out of papyrus. And then to observe nature and follow the rhythm, like to go to sleep as soon as the sun is down and raise up with the sun, because We're supposed to follow the rhythm of nature. We're supposed to be going to bed at 12. We're not supposed to be getting up at 12, 12 in noontime. So our schedule, our body is fighting the rhythm of nature. If you see, nature is very healthy and do everything at the same time every day, and follow the rhythm of the planets and life. But we don't. We are all over the place, not always doing the same thing twice. They observe and celebrate and grateful of the solstices and equinoxes with great reverence, because they know the importance of those cycles, and they took advantage of that energy at the time of the year that was mighty powerful to continue to advance your knowledge, advance your person, improve. Nature gives us opportunity, but as you know, not that many people celebrate it. Now let's talk about Pythagoras and the role of women. In his school, women would work. He was not a male chauvinist, obviously. Women were welcome, and they learned philosophy. They learned the same things men did, and they also have decorum. They are taught how to run a home and educate the children. And it was a matriarchal system, just like a village method, that the neighbors look after the well-being of a child as their own. Anybody who want to join the school, they have to first of all sell their homes, and with the money of the selling, the selling of their home, they have to bring that money in to supply for the maintenance of the village, of the system of the school, because everybody lived in the same place, except he divided in categories. They were the exoteric group. Those were the ones that were the listeners, and those don't have to live at the school. They don't have to be vegetarian. They don't have to observe anything like the one in the esoteric school. They were more strict, and then pardon me, they were able to live a little more free in a sense, but they had 3 years of probation. And after the 3 years, they decided whether, the person qualified to do the next step. His school was 3 degrees. He always encouraged that you should educate the children. Don't wait until they get teenagers. You have to start educating it from birth almost. Because we do, I remember being pregnant with my first child, and I was doing lectures, and I said, I hope I am able to inspire my children to be a theosophist when they or at least live like a theosophist when they get older. So he say, educate the children, and it won't be necessary to punish the men. And I think that's very, very wise. And he wrote many beautiful golden verses, but we don't have time to read them all because there are many. Now let's talk about something very, very important in here. The Pythagorean oath. According to HPV, the tetractys by which the Pythagorean sword was not the tetragrammaton, but on the contrary, the higher or superior tetrarchy. And the lower tetrarchy is the root of illusion of the world of matter. And this is the tetragrammaton of the Jews and the mysterious deity over which the Kabbalists make such a fuss, according to HPV. It has a very mystic and varied signification, and this represents 4 stages of evolution: a monad, a spark of divinity, a dual creative force of duad, the world of forms, and the world of complete and concrete manifestation. The tetrarchy alone, that is 4 elements, and cannot account for the whole manifested cosmos, obviously, but within there are 2 tetrarchy. One representing the higher aspect, and another one for the lower planes of the universe. Now, this Pythagorean oath with with, which is, I solemnly swear by him who have breathed into our souls the sacred tetractys, the source of nature whose motion is eternal. He will give this as part of the required to be part of this group. And I think, I don't know if he gave it only to the exoteric or the esoteric or both, but I know that they have to this is the oath they have to swear, and apparently they have to do daily meditation, looking and trying to find the energy and the meaning of this universal symbol. That was something they have to do every day. Now let's move on to the Pythagoras maintain that the origin of the universe is a number, and we heard so many times they say God's geometrizes, you know. And as you see the tetractys, some of you might be familiar with it. The point is the higher mind, and then the line is the matter, and then the third triangle is the mona and the duad, and then the fourth, the solid. The tetractys, which is a Greek word, or tetract, is a triangle figure consisting of 10 points arranged in 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 points in each row, which is the geometrical representation of the 4th triangle number. As a mystical symbol, it was very important to the secret worship of Pythagoreanism and requires the oath, as I mentioned before. There were 4 seasons, and the number was also associated with planetary motions and music, and unveils the relevance of the tree of life. Triangles serve as an alchemist symbol of air, water, and earth. In what you conceive as 4, there are 10, then a perfect triangle as the tetractys. 4 makes 7. Proclus said Pythagoras celebrated the tetractys as the fountain of the perennial nature. That's on Timotheus 3. Now, this is a very powerful symbol, right? The tetractys, the mona, and the divine proportion. Now we're going to move on to the next subject or topic, which is music in the spheres. He said there is geometry in the humming of the string, which by the way, he discovered that, and you're going to see how he discovered that and why it's so important. And he had many instruments, he made instruments, and he had different type of instrument, like such. Not only the lyre, they were very famous during the Greek time, but also all different instruments, even air instruments. Now I'm going to show you a very interesting video from History Channel of our ancient alien ancestors. And there is a group of religious leaders, scientists, astronomic physics, and etc., that they got together to discuss this. And there is a corroboration that Pythagoras was absolutely right about the music of the sphere. So I'll be with you in a second.
There is an ancient book called Perik Shirah, or the chapter of song, wherein which is revealed that everything in nature has its own vibration, which means it has its own consciousness.
Right. We call that mechanical resonance.
Everything is alive.
And that comes back to the universe itself has this mishmash of vibrations,
Right.
and it's singing a song, so to speak. And if we learn how to interpret and or manipulate the song, then we can interpret and or manipulate the universe.
And it's all harmonics.
It's all harmonic.
So we've got to go back to Pythagoras with his music of the spheres concept, because he comes up with the idea of the musical scale and the musical ratios.
In the 6th century BC, Pythagoras, the famous Greek mathematician and philosopher, made an acoustic discovery that would reverberate through history.
Pythagoras was, in a certain sense, the father of modern mathematics. He gave us the base 10 formula for our Western system of numbers, and he discovered a divine symmetry, so to speak, in all things that exist.
One day, Pythagoras is walking by the blacksmith, and he's hearing some harmony coming out from the smithy area there. And so, with the kind of persistence of a scientist, he figures out that if a hammer is twice the weight of another hammer, and they both strike at the same time, the notes they make are harmony.
The great discovery he made is that the waves generated, say, by strings or wind instruments, could be converted into clear notes and scales by using fractions and discrete ratios. So Pythagoras did this amazing job of taking math and geometry and tying it to music, which then led to the entire Western musical scale.
Pythagoras' study of harmonics led him to theorize that everything in the universe, including planets and stars, exists in a constant state of vibration. Incredibly, he was right.
2,000 years ago, the Greeks asked an elemental question: what paradigm can explain the entire complexity of the universe? Pythagoras said music has the complexity to explain the diversity of the universe itself. So in other words, our universe resonates with the notes from music. Pythagoras said that everything is based on music, which in turn is based on certain ratios, thirds, fifths, octaves. So why not explain the solar system this way? If you look at Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, they are aligned according to certain ratios. Maybe these ratios are the ratios of strings. And so he called it music of the spheres. When planets move around the solar system, he thought they must create music. Music that we cannot hear. This is heavenly music, music of the angels. But nonetheless, that would explain the regularity of the solar system itself. And so he thought you could explain the universe through music.
Pythagoras felt he was unlocking a kind of code of creation. He was providing humanity with the language of the gods, so to speak.
Pythagoras said it was Apollo, the sun god, who taught him about all of these advanced concepts and laying down the basis for modern music and everything that we know about music. So there's an extraterrestrial connection here that is very important for us to think about.
All this talk about music and frequencies and harmonics all boils down to mathematics, correct?
According to the ancient Kabbalistic text, math complemented with appropriate harmonics are going to align with the natural harmonic or universal pattern of the universe. We are talking about the hidden sacred knowledge of the ancients, which was their secret technology, their way of reaching out to the higher dimensions, whether they be to angels or gods or ancient aliens.
Hi again. Well, what do you think? That was marvelous, wasn't it? And I'm so glad that now science is looking deeper, getting more intuitive. I think all these trips to the different planets have opened up the mind of science, because they realize that things that they were not the way they thought. And if is very much in according to our teaching as well. We already knew that Venus already was in the process of decay, and everybody always writing poetry and all that. Such a beautiful, bright planet, and then when they went there, they realized that that's what's happening. However, it was Pythagoras who discovered that Venus, the Lucifer that they changed that name and they made it a monster out of it and evilized it. But Venus appears in the morning and in the evening, and he discovered that. Before that, we didn't know that. So another of his great discovering. Listen, I have a lot of material. I could tell you a lot of things. So I'm going to close with a couple of things in here, and then I'm going to, so we have time for questions too. According to HPV, and as other people also have written, these initiates have their missions. Krishna, Buddha, and Jesus or Apollonius of Tyana, or an Apollonius of Tyana, came to reform religion. Plato and Ammonius Saccas came to reform philosophy. Pythagoras and Paracelsus came to reform science. H.P.B. Blavatsky's mission was to reform the three fundamental aspects of life: religion, science, and philosophy. And with this, I would like to conclude because I don't want to go over time. And I hope that if you have any question, whatever that I didn't cover in this presentation, I'd be glad to answer when we are live. Or I will say once I close this presentation. Hello again.
Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's very interesting. I would just like to ask you if you're familiar with Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. Shakespeare is supposedly an agent of the adepts, although unconscious of it, and where it said to Jessica, such harmony there is for immortal souls, but whilst this muddy vesture of decay doth grossly close it in, we cannot hear it. And that if the human race would just be quiet for 1 minute, we might be able to hear the music of the spheres. And I just wonder, and this is of course from Pythagoras and also Kepler, who is a Pythagorean, Johannes Kepler, the astronomer, totally believed this. If we could just be quiet for 1 minute, we would know the universe is divine. But of course we don't shut up. I don't know what's, yeah.
Yes, well, silence, apparently, the only way that you can find yourself and purify yourself is by the silence that you just mentioned. And obviously, Shakespeare knew that. I do have some notes. I have some notes about that. And in fact, when Pythagoras, when he went through all these journeys, through all these different places, Greece, and as you know, Egypt was one of the many places that he initiated, and they didn't want to let him. He was recommended by Tiles, that was his instructor, Thales, and then when he arrived there, they didn't let him in. He applied again and again, but he was told that unless, can you hear me? Because I hear some background noise. Can you hear me?
Pretty good.
Most of it.
Okay. Okay. He applied again and again, but he was told that unless he goes through a particular training or fasting and breathing, He cannot be allowed to enter the school. And then he said, okay, it looks like somebody's audio is on, and I'm picking up the background. Could you please check and maybe put mute?
I'm
Vijay, what
sorry,
do you
it's
think
her echo. It's her echo.
Oh, your echo.
My
I think
echo.
it's Victoria. So I muted her.
Really?
Yeah. Does that fix it?
Is that good now?
All right,
Good.
go ahead. Try it
Okay.
again.
So I was saying that Pythagoras was not, they didn't let him into the after all the training that he had, he was highly recommended, and he thought, I qualify. And they say, no, you can be here. And they say, you have to go through a particular training of fasting and breathing, and you cannot be allowed to enter the school. And then Pythagoras is reported that he has said, I have come for knowledge, not any sort of discipline. But the school authority said, we cannot give you knowledge unless you are different. And really, we are not interested in knowledge at all. We are interested in actual experience.
Hmm.
No knowledge is knowledge unless it is lived and experienced. So you will have to go on a 40 days fast, continuously breathing in a certain manner with certain awareness on certain points. They give the instructions, of course. And then after 40 days of fasting and breathing, and be aware and attentive, he was allowed to enter the school at Diospolis, I guess it's a section of the Egyptian. Apparently they go different areas. It is said that Pythagoras said, you are not allowing Pythagoras in? I am a different man now. I am reborn. And you were right and I was wrong. Because then my whole standpoint was intellectual. Through this purification, my center of being have changed. Before this training, I could only understand through the intellect, through the head. But now I can feel. Now truth is not a concept to me, but it's a life. And I think that's the goal of this training and purification. And that's how you develop the intuition. That's the door, the key. That's the key to enlightenment and to free us from this illusion and this wheel of life. We have so many chains in our neck and we keep repeating the same thing and don't seems to work out a lot of things. Hey, we've been here for 18 millions and we're still here. So what's wrong? Well, he spent 22 years perfecting himself in mathematics, astronomy, music, and he was initiated then into the Egyptian mysteries. And apparently, after he was initiated into the Egyptian mysteries, the king of Persia invaded Egypt in the 525 BC. And then Pythagoras was one of the prisoners. And then he was sent to Babylon. And then they say he took advantage of that opportunity and he was able to train with the Chaldean mystery, which is supposed to be like very high too. But it was something very, very, very interesting. In the way to Babylon, Chaldean, he was in this boat with these sailors, and the sailors were going to sell him. But then they noticed something different about him. I guess it's radiant. And they said he was also very cheerful all the time. And they said, oh, we are sailing with a God. God is with us. So they helped him and he was able to then, get the connections and being able to go where he needed to go. So it is a beautiful story. And as far as I mentioned before, he went to Persia, to India. He continued to his education through the Brahmanes. He even went to India, but unfortunately, by the time he arrived to India, Buddha have left. But in India, he was respected, and they even call him the Pitar Guru and the great. They say he entered as a student and walked out as a master. So, any other questions? Like I say, it's a lot of wonderful information. You know, one of the things that I thought that it's not often discussed or written about is the fact that he was a great physician. He's even listed among the ancient medical school books, which I found, very old books, and he's highly respected, and he because he was a healer. And remember, back then you are forbidden to charge for healing a person. That was something that happened after Hippocrates. After Hippocrates, it was a doctor after his era that start charging. Because before, I think they could even, maybe give you something or don't give you, but you're not supposed to charge, because in a spiritual things, it's black magic. If you something that is your inheritance, because knowledge is our inheritance, and you start selling, then you tarnish it and then turn it into black magic. That's why we are telling our friends and our students that to be very aware that certain practices are not actually, it will harm, it will be an obstacle to your progress actually. Maybe you make a little bit of money now, but then you're going to stay here much longer, or maybe don't even come back, because apparently if you do certain things in the area of psychism and hypnotism and all these things, that it's possible that you even lose your soul. And that's something that I was not aware of it, but it's quite serious, and we have to take it seriously and continue to encourage people to be careful that this is something that you're not supposed to do. Psychism, anything like that. It's important that we don't practice any of those things. So knowledge, Monica?
Yes, I'm just curious. You spoke about how Pythagoras gave us musical instruments and gave the Western world its scales and whatnot in terms of music. And I wanted to know if the celebrated classical musicians had awareness of this and a connection with him through this.
That is an excellent question, because I was thinking on those lines while I was doing this. Because Beethoven, he actually said that he always listened to this music. Music of the spirit is what he was writing. He said he had music in his head all the time, day and night. And sometimes he wake up just to write them. And then he also was, as you know, a lot of these great geniuses die in poverty and they are mistreated, and the church take advantage of them or just get their music copyrights. And he said that in his will, he gave a lot of instruction. One of them is, please parents, because he had a son, please parents, teach your children to love and cultivate virtues, not the value of money. And then Vivaldi, who did the Four Seasons, he was a monk, and he was amazing. And he lived in poverty. He died in horrible conditions. And he was the same thing. He just He was a celibate and he just lived for music. And apparently that is a powerful formula that happened when you are a celibate. Apparently you can tune in to higher in the arts. You can tune to higher spheres and get access. But as soon as you connect it with the lower, which is, for me, when you're active in sex, it brings down the energy. And HP talks about it. I don't want to discuss it too much about it. But these geniuses, most of them, I studied them. They were not married. And in fact, the only one, he was not an initiate, but he was brilliant. It was Socrates. Plato said that he was not an initiate because he was married and he had children even at late age. but it's a wonderful question, and yeah, you're right in. And in this life, Barbara Streisand, she spoke about that. She had one of the highest, strongest belts in the world. She's magnificent. You know what she said? That she doesn't have peace because she's always hear these sounds all the time, day and night.
Miluka, may I ask a question very quickly?
Sure.
Do you think perhaps Pythagoras could have been tuning or striking a note or a chord with the akasha? As it says in the glossary, well, akasha very quickly, the subtle, supersensuous, spiritual essence which pervades all space, the primordial substance erroneously identified with ether. But the point I'm making here is it says, this is why it is stated in the Puranas that akasha has but one attribute, namely sound. For sound is but the translated symbol of logos. It mentions speech, but I would think that would also translate to a musical note as well. Do you have any idea about that?
Well, it makes sense, and if you read it from the glossary, I can argue that. But if anybody else have any other ideas or comments, I welcome it. But obviously, everything is all interconnected, and there's so many levels of akasha too. You have to understand, it's many levels of everything, and we're talking about the cosmos. That's what the energy is coming, and how it's amazing. We are a number. From the moment we are born, we're born in an hour and a date at a time, right? And then we are the youngest son or the oldest son, number 7 or number 6, whatever. And then we have a social security, and then we have a house with a number. I mean, we're surrounded by numbers. Unfortunately, we are not very aware of that we are a number. and that have a vibration. Even the day that you were born, that has some certain vibration. And as you know, that sound comes first, and after sounds, it creates the colors. Remember, sound makes colors, and they are right now. You saw it in the video with the scientists, in which this magnificent scientist presented these video clips. It's so magnificent. I do have, but I don't want to try. I don't want to take too much of your time. But I did have a little clip that I recorded of the sound of the Earth and Mars and Saturn, and they make sound. The sound of the Earth is like a bell. They just did some sort of a technical something and traduce it to it, and when you hear it, it sounds like a bell. And I say, oh, maybe that is why in religious ceremony, people use a bell or a ball, the Tibetan ball, is because that represents the sound of the earth. And then the Native American, they use the drum, and they say when they do that drum, that's the beat, the sound of the beat of the earth. And everything, all the planet have a heartbeat, but the heartbeat of the earth is that drum, boom, boom, boom. It's quite interesting. Yes, Monica?
You just put this in my mind when you spoke briefly about sound giving birth to color. is there any evidence that Pythagoras spoke about this or taught about this synesthesia, perhaps?
Well, let's see. Well, we know through our teachings that, and a lot of the teachings that is in the school of Pythagoras, I didn't talk in details, is pretty much what we study in theosophy. Because remember, he was a theosophist. And we're very fortunate that HPB brought it into, we're very fortunate to have it. We might not understand it, maybe we might not apply it at this point, but in the future, at least the seed is there. But I'm pretty sure that it was in a deeper level. But the fact that you have to do all these things with initiation, you know, there were 3 categories, and you have to spend in this initiation 5 or even 6 years, and you are tested. The probationers, he said that they could not talk to him. They didn't know who he was. And then he went around anonymously. They were in the gym playing, and all of a sudden he observed them. He said that you can tell the character of the person by the laugh. Yeah, and he said he was also cheerful, beautiful, you know, gloomy, cheerful all the time. But he said that he could tell about the character of a person by the laugh. And I thought, wow, that's very interesting too. And things like that. I mean, if we observe, I think that one of the things that we are lacking in this society, besides that we're so materialistic and so distracted with our equipments, is that we don't observe and silence. The voice of silence was essential, because he said that it's not only to train you, that when you go outside, you don't say the wrong things or break the vows. It's a training, but it's also that in the silence, in that inner, I would say it's almost like a birth, you're giving birth, like for 9 months, let's say, when you're having a baby, you are in that gestation project. And that silence is going to take you into that gestation project, just like it took him 40 days, right? But it would take us years to get into absorbing, listen to the voice, the inner voice, and be in a quietness. Like some of these great philosophers like Thoreau and Emerson, they went to the forest, right, to find that voice in the quietness. And it makes a difference. It transforms you apparently, but it takes a lot of discipline and courage. And other things that they were talking about, sounds and speech, is that people have no idea how much damage they cause to themselves and others by gossip and by doing all this kind of damaging talk. And in our society have become an art. They have television show about gossip. And in society, people say they go out to dinner just to gossip about the neighbors and each other, blah, blah, blah. I had no idea of the power of the voice and the power of that energy. They say we waste our energy. We should try to daily spend time quiet, not talking at all, because that is spiritual energy that you are putting in reservoir. And then they say that as much as you continue to work in that world, spiritual world of quiet and beauty and peace and harmony, they say the healthier you're going to get, it's obviously more intuitive too. And they say you actually transform yourself not only inner, but physically as well. And that's like magic, you know. But you have to have the right motive, and that purity has to be cultivated. And we have so much baggage from so many lives, you know, past life and all that. It's sometimes hard because they say as soon as you try to get into your path, Your lower nature is going to be like the story of Krishna and Arjuna, right? It's going to get on your way. They're going to say, oh, you're killing your relatives, right? And that's our daily life struggle. And one want to pull up and the other one pull down, you know. And that's the constant game of life, I would say. But at least, you know, we get this opportunity to talk about and discuss it and ask questions. Anybody else have a question?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Silence.
I have a question.
Silence. Okay.
Yeah, silence is good too. But now you taught etiquette for many years. Did you at all think about during that time that you were bringing forth something of Pythagoras in his school? Because he was such a influential person throughout the ages, and yet at the same time it seems like he taught about the simple things of life.
Well, let's see. I started teaching when I was 17 years of age. I was hired by Barbizon School of Modeling, and I was the youngest teacher in the whole, you know, the 50 branches. And that's how I became a teacher. I was trained by this method. It was more about modeling and personal improvement. Then I discovered that I love to share or try to help somebody, guide them, stuff like that. And when we did the Kumara Center at the beginning, almost 11 years ago, the idea was to, I taught before that at Parks and Recreation, good manners. And then we have finally our own studio for dancing and etiquette. And of course, you know, I don't know if it was Pythagoras. I know that I started early doing it. And I discovered that it's something that I love to do. And children don't judge you, you know, like adults. They see you, they hear your accent, they don't see you. And then children are not that way. Children like you or don't like you, but it's like they see more than just the physical, and they hear more than just an accent or whatever. They are not judgmental, for one thing. And then I learn a lot from them. And the question they ask, because see, nowadays the parents don't take the time to sit with the children and listen to them. So they come to my class. Some of them were forced to go there. You see their long faces. So I find something to do and make them important. I listen to them and I give them a duty to do. And they immediately behave better because they have a responsibility to do and they want to look good. And then they could see through other children what it's like to be, you know, disturbing the class. And sometimes say, oh, he's disturbing the class. And then I say, okay. He learned the lesson. But that's what it's all about. I think we are children, really. We are, even adults, still children. And we are in different, you know, paths and levels. And I will have to say that, I don't know, for some reason, I got this 3 and 4 years old that I say, no, you're too young to be here. You know, it's 5 and up. And then when they start talking to me and the mother say, are you kidding me? She learned how to read and write by her own. This one is a genius in dancing and music. And I just go, oh my gosh. So they're all souls. And I think we as theosophists have to be very careful that we don't judge people by appearances. And when you get a new student, quote unquote, maybe that new student is much older than you. And you have to maybe take that in consideration and treat them with the great respect you treat the elders as well. So you never know, you know, and that's what I say. These children were my teachers. And I was very honored that I had that opportunity. I'm trying to start a parents and teachers group in Facebook. It's called Parents and what is it? Parents and Theosophists. Yeah, Parents and Theosophists. And I got very few people interested, but that could change. At least I put it out there in the universe, and we see what is the results. And right now with this pandemic, it's kind of hard to start doing new things like that. But thank you for your question, and like I say, I know what you're saying. Thank you, Jonathan.
Well, why do you think he had such an emphasis on kind of the moral character side of it? I mean, your whole presentation has said that, but I was wondering if you could condense it into something there, because those golden verses, for example, they're golden in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he that was one of the number one things in his school is virtue. It has to be cultivated, and you have to be honest, and you have to be able to be of service to mankind. And if you don't have those qualities, you cannot progress in it. You cannot be brotherly and kind and do all these things. You won't be able to progress in the path. So it was extremely important, and a lot of students, passed the initiations, others didn't. And those who did became a statesman, great, very important doctors. In fact, it was the Pythagoreans that started the visiting into home tradition, because back then when you get sick, they have all these superstitions. They take you into this temple and do this incantation and all this, all kind of stuff and pray to the gods to heal you and all that. But the Pythagoreans changed all that. And this was actual scientists. And they would just go to the home and the poor, and they, like Paracelsus did. Paracelsus, he was an initiate, and he was able to deal with humanity in that level. He was very simple, very humble. He was poor, and they kill him. And that's what happened when you bring light, when you try to change the status quo, and especially if Christianity get involved. They immediately find a way to get rid of you. It happened to Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and other politicians that maybe they were not saints, but they were good. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, they were in the right path, but they have to find a way to get rid of them. And it becomes difficult for the light and these masters to appear in the world, because they are not able to do the job unless it's anonymously. And even HPV, they didn't poison her, but they did character assassination. And they say that is almost just like killing you, And you see how even in the internet, there are all kind of strange stories about her. And in fact, I just joined Wikipedia as one of the editors. And I asked one of my fellow students, if he can help me, because New York, maybe Monica, maybe you can help me with this. New York have a copy of an article by the Sun newspaper in which William K. George redeemed HPV from all the accusation as a fraud. It was a very small article, but Joe Pope showed me that article, and it was in the file of New York ULT. I don't usually leave mine, or if it's open or closed, but if you can find that for me, I would greatly appreciate it, because I would like to make a copy and put it in Wikipedia and have proof that all those accusations were false. And that's what we can do little by little,
Sure, I will ask the people that I know at the New York Lodge, and maybe someone has it. Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you
Yes,
very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You're very welcome. It's great to have you all.
Thank you.
Miluka, thank you very, very much. But now the rest of us are going to have to step up after what you did. You're going to be a hard act to follow. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I
Have a
love
great.
those movies that you made yourself.
Yeah. I don't know if one of them got interrupted because I moved and all of a sudden I said, oh God, I hope I didn't interrupt one of them.
I think that was okay. And then you
Okay.
included some other videos, which was very fine. So it's a wonderful combination of beautiful slides and videos and just a lot of creativity and a lot of hard work and wonderful research. So thank you very, very much, because really you tied together all three objects of the Theosophical movement when you think about it. You know, the first object, obviously, with universal brotherhood, and the second object where we learned about a whole new teacher and so forth, and the third object with really the path and this interior development and so forth. So thank you so much. And next week, speaking of that, we will hear about Prometheus, no less. So thank you all very, very much.